Welcome to the Starting Nowhere podcast. I'm your host, Brandon. Do me a favor and make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you can see more Starting Nowhere. Today, my guest is Cory Kastle. Cory is a former pro wrestler who got his start in the suburbs of Philadelphia. We're going to talk about how he got into wrestling, how to go for your dreams, and my personal hatred for the movie Pretty Woman. Please enjoy today's episode. Thanks for joining me today, Mr. Cory. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little about yourself and who you are?
Hi, everybody. I'm Cory Kastle. I'm a ghost. I'm a ghost. I'm a guest today. I'm a ghost today on
Now
this
we're
podcast.
a horror show podcast.
Now it's a horror show podcast.
Yeah.
This is a paranormal podcast. And I'm the ghost guest for this host man, Brandon. I'm Cory Kastle. You may or may not know me, most likely not, from pro wrestling, or possibly stand-up comedy, or possibly the film Bruce, or any acting work that I've done. You probably don't know it, but I'm happy today that I have some of your attention, so that I can say, "Hey, I'm somebody worth paying attention to. Pay attention to me."
See, we can get existential right off the bat here and say that's probably 90% of the human experience, right? Is that I'm somebody worth paying attention to, pay attention to me, is exactly how almost all of us feel for the majority of our life. And that we spend the rest of our life trying to prove that.
That very fragile ego comes from a place of damage. I have made peace with that damage, but the hole is still there. That look at me hole, that attention seeking hole, that need to be validated. It will always exist, and it has existed since I was a kid. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true for a lot of us, though, no matter whether it's a trauma or some kind of positive memory or something like that. I think a lot of what we do and what we try to do comes from something that happened to us in our childhood, or something we didn't want to have happen to us in our adulthood based upon what happened in our childhood. So I don't think that that's a particularly unique experience, which is weird. So I'm going to say something that a lot of people get mad about when I say, but it's true for me. It's true for, I think, everybody, whether people like to hear it or not. We're all not that unique. Even though our specific situations are unique, you could see the patterns across all of these other people, you know what I mean, when you go and look at their life. So somebody like yourself, like you said, you have some of the things that made you who you are, and the look at me hole, as you called it, which, by the way, sounds like a terrible adult film. I think that's true for a lot of people. One of the reasons that I'm here now doing podcasts, trying to put my thoughts out into the world, is probably for the similar reasons. You know what I mean? Like, right. Something happened that I was in childhood, and now that I'm bored and was in quarantine, and I'm like, you know what? People need to hear my thoughts. That's what we need to do, is have Brandon out here with a microphone and screaming into the wilderness to see what happens.
That's great that you said screaming into the wilderness. I use the phrase all the time, like, because sometimes my episodes of my podcast, Evolving with Cory Kastle, sometimes they aren't very viewed on YouTube. Like, my YouTube videos don't get a lot of views. I mean, like 20 or so. Yeah. And then I'll be like, oh, here I am chopping a tree down in the woods. No one's around here at fall. Like, but screaming into the wilderness, a very comparable statement.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of becoming anything, right? At some point in everyone's career, no matter what that career is, whether it's social media, whether it's boxing, whether it's wrestling, or any of that type of stuff, we're all doing it to no audience. You're all out there just grinding away at something that you don't know if you're ever going to make it doing, and you don't know if anybody's actually going to care that you're doing. And I think that's the beauty in the work itself, is just doing the work and hoping that the results come out in a way that make people want to pay attention. Because I think that's the truest form of voting you can get, right? Is that if somebody's spending their day listening to you say some nonsense, then like they really either are entertained by you or believe in what you're doing or something like that. And it's very authentic, as long as you're not buying your views, which some people do. And believe me, I don't give a shit enough about this to buy views, so I'm not doing that. But I just think that it's very organic in that way, because if you go to a job or something like that, you're like your normal 9 to 5, which most of us out here have, They pay attention to you because they're paying you and they expect you to do a role. And that's basically it. That's the limit of the interaction, right?
Right.
But for something like this, or for, again, wrestling or any form of entertainment, that's people taking that money they earn doing that thing that they probably barely care about and then giving it to you because they go, hey, I like this. I like what I'm seeing. I want to see more of this. So the way to do that is to give this guy a look, my $5 of change. You know what I mean?
Well, the reason they call it hard-earned money is because the people who earn that money doing it by doing something they probably didn't want to be doing anyway. So that's why it's called hard-earned. I mean, of course, you work sometimes you work really hard for it, but sometimes it's hard-earned because you got paid to do something you don't really even like doing that much.
That's how I became an assassin. It happens that way. So
yes, that's hard-earned.
So speaking of hard earned, though, pro wrestling, like that's a seriously hard way to earn a living and money, because I know a million different things, excuse me, a million different ways that those people end up like just injured. And everybody talks about The Rock, they talk about Dave Bautista, they talk about the big ones who kind of broke over into non-wrestling entertainment avenues, but that's not the reality for the majority of people. A lot of people grind along like the regional circuits and that type of stuff and barely ever make it to the next level where they're actually making some real pocket change. Tell me what got you into wrestling? Like, how'd you get started?
Oh, my comment that I'll make before I tell this story.
Absolutely.
What gets people through wrestling, knowing that they probably won't make it. Most of them are delusional and think that they probably are going to like just go knock, 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 knock. Hey, we're looking for you. Come work for us.
Yeah.
I think that some people in the back of their heads really think that that's what's going to go on. Like they're going to meet somebody who's going to want them, or something. They're going to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And that it's just magically going to happen the way they want like their career to go.
Absolutely. So wait, before you answer the question, let's push that off for a second, because you just said something that takes me down a different train of thought that I love to talk about.
And get there.
Going back to, again, the stuff that we do in our childhood, that's because we've seen how many shows, movies, books, and everything that's exactly what happens. That's the entire plot of Harry Potter. Harry Potter is based upon a kid who's just in a shitty lifestyle, and then all of a sudden somebody comes along to him and they're like, hey, by the way, you're a secret magic wizard who's like going to rule the world and everything like that. Just come along. And so we all end up doing that at some point in our life, not like hopefully for the majority of your life, but you end up doing that where you're just sitting there waiting for somebody to come and tell you that you're supposed to be famous, you're a king or queen of some country you've never heard of or something like that.
Every one of our stories that we've been told is of some damsel in distress, whether man or woman, whatever the gender, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like you're somebody who's inside of a struggle, and then somebody who's outside of a struggle puts a hand out and says, come live your dreams.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I think maybe the idea of a lot of people thinking like that their dreams are just going to find them and they're not going to even look for them. Mm-hmm. Like they're not even going to work hard for them. They're not going to hustle as hard because they don't realize their dreams aren't looking for them the way they're looking for their dreams.
Exactly. And I think I never missed a chance to shit on this movie because I hate it. I hate its place in a lot of people's hearts and minds. But that's exactly, I feel like, what Pretty Woman teaches people. She was a prostitute who a rich guy loved her prostituting so much that he decided to change her entire life. That's not happening for you people.
Good verb.
Yeah. Prostituting. You like that?
He loved her prostituting.
Yeah, he loved her prostituting so much that he came and decided that I'm going to take all this money that I built over these years to change this person's life. And we build these fantastical stories around that kind of nonsense that just does not make any sense. And so it lives within us that we're all going to be Harry Potter or something like that. And I don't remember what show it was. I want to say The League, but that doesn't feel right. But there's a show where the guy, one of the guys in the show is talking about how the true story of Karate Kid is about the guy who from Cobra Kai. I forget his name right now and everything, which now they of course made that show because he's the one who actually did all this hard. What's that?
Johnny Lawrence.
Is that his name in the show or the actor's name?
No, that's the character's name. Johnny
okay,
Lawrence.
good. Thank you, because I was supposed to make sure. Johnny. So how he's the real hero of the show, because he's the kid who actually put in all the hard work and had to go through everything he went through to get there, just to get beat by a kid who cheated and didn't really work that hard, just had like a natural ability for this one move or whatever and stuff. And I'm like, that's kind of true in a lot of ways in life, because that can happen to you in life as well. Like you're working super hard at your 9 to 5 and you're getting ahead and you're like, I got to get this promotion. And then they promote the kid's nephew or something like that. You know what I mean? Like somebody who didn't do any of the work to get it. You know,
it's weird because it's easy to just blame something on not being in the right place at the right time and being like discrediting somebody for getting what they got because you didn't get what you got. So you go, oh, well, he's nepotism. He's somebody's nephew. He's somebody's friend's nephew. Like it's like it instead of only doing that, you could do that too, but also no, like you've got to do more work then. You've got to work hard to get what it is that you want because you don't have those ins. So for sure, if you're complaining about that, make sure when you have kids, don't push your dream on them. Don't expect them to do your thing because like you bitched about their nepotism. Now you don't go and like, oh, people will jump all over your wrestling career. They're going to be like, oh, you're Johnny Walmart kick pads need. You're Johnny Walmart kick pads son. So they got to push you.
See, but that's the only logical reason I see to have children is to push all your failures and things that you didn't do onto them. If you're not doing that, why are you even having kids? Like, it doesn't make sense. You want them to do what you weren't able to do so you don't feel like a piece of crap. That's the only reason I think to have kids.
That's it. This is where your legacy comes from. That's where your legacy comes from. Your kids accomplishing what you couldn't.
Exactly. I don't care if you want to do it. I need you to fulfill my prophecy.
That's why "That's my son" is such a line in movies because that father wanted to be whatever the son was and gave it up to have him. So now his son's gotta. I think that's another whole part of just finding the lack of accountability in yourself to be like, I gave up my dreams for this kid. It's like,
no, you didn't.
I don't, I think you could have still accomplished your dreams if you would have stuck with them. You just wanted to make having this child your cop out for being a lazy twat. You just can also do. There's tons of very successful people who are also parents. Like, but maybe I don't want to paint a very broad brush.
And it to me, I'll paint that picture all damn day. I'll do it.
But I realize there are circumstances that sometimes are out of people's control. But like, as the City High song says, "Baby, I know if my mother could do it, maybe you could do it."
Well, it's to your point, like, and she's been coming up a lot in the news this week, and that's why it's fresh on my mind. Serena Williams won a Grand Slam while she was pregnant.
You were going to say the lady from City High has been.
Oh no! I don't even know what City High is, to be honest. So.
Oh, it was a 90s R&B rap R&B group.
Oh yeah, that's too obscure for me. I feel like I don't. If you talk about Color Me Bad or Escape or something like that, I'm with you. But City High did not reach my my.
I bet you know the song.
I'll look it up after this for sure, and you're probably right.
I'm gonna sing it to you right now.
I don't think that'll help. I feel like no matter how well you sing it, it's not gonna help. But, all right, so sorry we went off on that tangent. That was a fun tangent, and I'll probably come back to it because now I'm all hopped up on my hatred for Pretty Woman. So again, going back to it, how did you get into wrestling? Like, what made you want to start, and like, what were your first steps to actually try to achieve?
Oh, you were talking about someone in the news. Get back to talking about that before we get in.
Yeah. Thank you for keeping me on track. Are you sure this isn't your podcast now? Anyways,
I have been hosting podcasts for 4 years.
So Serena Williams won a Grand Slam while she was pregnant. So to that end, and she's won like other championships, things like that, since she's had children too. So the point is, she's able to do it when she's pregnant, and she's able to do it when she's a mother. But also, she's an exceptional human being. So I don't want to make it like everybody can do that. But what it is for a lot of people is that they do find ways to get out of whatever they were wanting to do because they didn't want to do the work to get the dream. Because like I always said, like I always say recently, do you want Jeff Bezos' money or do you want Jeff Bezos' life? Because you can't have his money without having his life. And not everybody wants that life. Not everybody wants to risk all their financial wealth to try to start that company back in the 90s or whatever, when the internet was just a fad, nobody believed in it and everything. You're out there trying to sell books, and he made that first desk out of like a door and everything. Nobody's doing that. You know what I mean? Nobody's wanting to do what Mark Zuckerberg was doing. None of these people want to do the work to be what they are. They just want the outcome. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people. We only focus on the outcome instead of realizing it takes work to do whatever you're going to do. If you're not in it for the work as well, you're not in it, and you're going to take that first exit where it's like, oh, it's a kid. Oh, it's the other job I have. It's whatever it is. And you're going to get off on that exit ramp and just take the hell off.
Well, it's totally easy to compare yourself to somebody else who's really successful and never, and you'll have never understood what their origin was. You'll never understand like what their struggle was. Like you could see somebody who's got lots and lots of money now and living the life they want to live, but it took a really long, dirty, yucky road to get there.
Absolutely. And that's like you were saying before, man, not everything is in your control, but everything still has to be your fault. So let's talk about this. Let's just go gender-based, race-based, whatever. There's a lot of prejudice in the world, right? So somebody may hold you back based upon some prejudice. That can be true, but you still have to overcome that if you want to do something. And what you can usually look at is that there was probably a person who had the same prejudices against them that was able to do it. So that tells you it is possible. You just have to find the right way to do it. So I think we let those limiting factors too much get in our head sometimes and shut down whatever we're trying to do.
Well, something I say a lot, and please, you can take this and you can apply it and you can use it. I say. So
you've given me license to claim that I said it, right? That I came up with it.
No, I mean, I'd appreciate the credit. I mean,
no.
But if you don't get around to giving me the credit, I'm not going to be too heartbroken.
No, I will. I'm just messing with you. Yeah, absolutely.
I say if you go into like a bookstore, there's not a lot of them, but if you go into a bookstore, there's $1 billion industry based around a section in the bookstore called self-help. And you'll never see a section called self-fix because it doesn't exist. And I think that's what people buying these books think, that they're going to fix themselves, but there isn't self-fix. You just got to continue to seek out the work that you've got to do.
Absolutely. And I think the reason that there are so many of those different type of books, because there's so many different ways to do it. There's so many different voices that can help you get there. And it's a process that's never done. You should always be helping yourself. You know, like you said, you're never going to be done. You're never going to be fixed. This is a project you can't ever finish. Even when you die, you're going to feel like you didn't get to do everything you wanted to do. That's how it works. That's how this whole messed up life we get to live ends up playing out. You're always going to be working on something on yourself. You're always going to be wanting to fix something on yourself. You're always going to want more, because that's how we live. And then until we eventually no longer do that.
Right.
So,
and you know, people, I think a thing I say a lot too, which, I mean, you can also quote me on it, but I think I don't think a lot of people are really used to, all they really live with is reacting to the world happening to them. So exactly. Like, this happened to me, so I had to do this. I had to make this decision because this happened. And like, they wind up only living a life that's kind of an observer to the reactions that they've got to make versus being a deliberate creator in their existence and really taking the steps towards the things they want to do instead I think a lot of people meet an obstacle and they don't get over the obstacle or get around the obstacle. They just go, there's that obstacle, and then constantly look at that obstacle for the accountability for them not being something more than what they are. And they'll go, this could have happened. Oh, I would have liked this more in my life on their deathbed. Oh man, I would have liked to have this kind of life. If it wasn't for James being a real dick and being in my way all the time, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just an easy way to go, like, that's not my fault. And the not my fault way of thinking is immature as hell. Like, you're not a mature person if you shift the blame from anything and in your brain justify it by going, well, that's not my fault, that's their fault. But like, it's your strength to go, all right, let me get over that. Let me forgive that. Let me move past that. Let me be unconditionally loving to myself and say, man, I deserve what I want, don't I? Yeah. Like, why shouldn't I get everything I want? And if what you want is to be fixed, work on fixing yourself. It's not gonna happen, because there's no such thing as like a clear cut path to whatever the top of the mountain is.
Absolutely. So how did, we're going to do it this time. How did you get started in wrestling? What was that process like for you?
I've told the story a billion times.
So tell it different. Give me an accent or something this time. I don't know.
So I'll give it to you differently by giving you this origin. My look at me hole, my damage, had wrestling be the escape for me on that. As a fan of wrestling, I was happily distracted from a life that I was not really fulfilled with. With, having a broken home, being poor on welfare, food stamps. Wrestling was an escape from that, and having that be a social circle with my friends. When we were 14, me and my best friend at the time, who's still very close friends with me, I work for his dad, nepotism. So Scott found an article in the Bucks County Courier-Times, right? So we're from Bucks County, PA, like the Philadelphia suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
And in the article, it had kids our age inside of a wrestling ring at a wrestling gym here in Bucks County. And we were like, we better go there. So it was like the summer before 9th grade, I think. And we went there and we met these wrestlers who were like, they didn't look like wrestlers. They were like out of shape dudes who were like rejects from the Monster Factory, which is like the most famous school in pro wrestling. So these guys couldn't stay at the Monster Factory. So they decided they were going to build their own ring and start their own gym. But they were not teaching us wrestling. They were just going, there's a ring, go do what you think you saw on TV, and didn't show us the technique or anything. So we went there, and man, wrestling's so white trash, right? just that thought has to keep going back into my mind, like what white trash pro wrestling is. Anyway, the place got shut down due to, and this feels white trash as hell for me to say, the place got shut down due to the guy being he was drunk and high at the place where he was, and he wasn't licensed to be running that in that town, and also bringing drugs around kids. Nah, it's not a real good look. So the place got shut down. A couple of my friends who were going there continued their training at a different school that was like a real school. Have you heard of CZW?
This sounds vaguely familiar.
Combat Zone Wrestling.
So you said CZW. No.
Yeah. So it's like a pretty major indie. A lot of the like dudes that are in WWE now came through CZW. So I went there when I was 16. So I had to like sell my bike and get a job so that I could afford the tuition for wrestling school. So I went I went there, and I kept, dude, I sucked for so long. I sucked for real long. Like I said, I started going there when I was like 16, but there was nobody else there that was like around my size, and there wasn't anybody else. Everybody was way bigger than me, and like I struggled to be able to do anything. Like I couldn't pick anybody up. I couldn't learn how to slam anybody. I was like a bump dummy for a long time. So I was just getting thrown around and beat up every day, like 4 days a week, until like some people my size started coming, and then I started learning better. And I started wrestling using the name Cory Kastle in September of 2002. So I was 18. I had just graduated high school, like months before that. And then I started wrestling as Cory Kastle. and then 1 month later lost my virginity.
Related.
So my big accomplishment was like I was saving myself for my dream. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't saving myself for marriage, like I was holding on to it or something, but it was like, oh, what's more important right now? What's more important right now is like, don't mess me up.
Mm-hmm.
Like this will mess me up, and I don't want that to happen. In my head, I think I might have said it a couple times out loud. It was like, I just don't want to focus on girlfriends or relationships or anything like that until like I'm closer to who I'd like to be.
Mm-hmm. And obviously that didn't pan out, which is what happens, I think. Well, I shouldn't say it that way because I don't think a lot of people have that same focus that you did, but I think that's how it happens for a lot of different people. You realize that you can maybe balance a little bit better than you think, or you realize that you don't necessarily have to have a relationship to have a sexual relation, you know?
Right. Well, I think either way it would have sidetracked me. I'm very ADD. I'm very distracted. Like I was a very sped kid, aka special ed. I was a sped kid and like had to take like Ritalin and man, I sound more and more like I had a white trash upbringing the more and more I speak.
Hey, you're talking to the right person, man. I don't think a lot of people know this. I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast before, but I lived in a trailer for my first, I don't know when that trailer burned down. When I was maybe 5 or something like that. So the first few years of my life, anyways, we lived in a trailer, and eventually it caught on fire and burned. And then we eventually, after that, we moved into a house. But no, yeah. So I didn't even know that was a thing, and it's hilarious because I hear people talk about white trash, and as I'm sure you could tell by looking at me, not so much something that applies to me directly. Now,
but for you to go, what year did our trailer burn down?
Yeah, I know.
A white trash sentence.
It is. It absolutely is. The whole thing is. Again, looking back on it, you're like, oh, that's a weird experience because other people, but that was my experience. And that's the way I've dealt with a lot of my life. Is like there are a lot of things that happen to me when I tell people. I see by the look on their face that what, and I'm like, for me, it's just what I went through. So like, I'm surprised by their surprise. You know what I mean? So the trailer was that thing for a lot of people, and especially when I say it now, they're like, well, you grew up in a trailer? I'm like, yeah, until I was like, I don't know, 3, 5, something like that. And then like, why'd you leave? It like burned out. It caught on fire because the stove, I think, got left on or something like that. And we came back, and it was the whole like movie scene where the fireman's outside of it, and like everything's like burned. My mom starts crying and everything like that. And so there's like almost no pictures of me as a baby, you know, because this is in the 80s where, you know, we had to still print the pictures out and everything like that. So the nothing digital and there's very few of them of me of really young because they all burnt up. So, but it's whatever. I was a cute baby. So the ones that do exist are like records, you know?
Oh man, you'll have to project that onto your kids when you have them. Do you have kids?
No, I do not. I do not have kids, and
you just take lots of pictures of them and be like, "Don't let these burn up in a fire, y'all." And then they're gonna have like issues about fire. Like, why are we so scared of fire? Well, it's because our dad, when we were little, said something about letting pictures of us burn up. We don't understand it either.
Well, and no, I think I tend to be the opposite way. You know, anything that I've been through, I'm like, oh, then you'll be fine. Because I made it through it, you'll be okay and everything. Like, I'm not saying you should have it happen to you, but at the same time, I'm not going to treat you like you're a delicate little, you know, porcelain doll or something like that I can drop and break. You'll be fine. Kids go through really bad stuff all the time. There's kids in Aleppo, there's kids in Syria and stuff like that. You'll be fine. I don't care about your friend at school saying you're a poopy head. You'll be okay. Get over it.
Well, I think I'm also not a parent.
So let's go. Let's do that now. That's what I'd love to do, right? If neither of us have kids, but let's spend the rest of the hour talking about how you should raise your kids. Because I love to give parents advice when I don't have kids, because I don't have to see if it works or not. I'm like, I don't know. This sounds right.
I have a little sister who's 11 years younger than me. So I look at a lot of the experiences that I have with raising her. Like, she's a great person now. She's such a good person. She's like getting a real estate license. She's worked at the same job for 10 years. She's still in college. She's a great, great person. Also, I mean, on top of that, her accomplishments aren't what make her a great person. She's like a great friend to people. She's really funny. She's very, very smart, and she has lessons to teach people. And she's going to make a good mom. She's going to make a really good mom one day. She has a great relationship with our mom. And I don't envy that at all. I think it's great. I love it. I love that Jess has that with our mom. Like that's so awesome. And because she's such a great mom to me. And like, she's probably just putting that right on to Jess now. But that being said, I felt like I got all the fatherly experience kind of out of the way. So, but I also didn't do it alone. Like, it wasn't like I was her only male role model, but for sure, I mean, it was me, my mom, my older sister, and my older gay brother. So it was like I was the only like man. I don't want to say man, but I was like the only one doing man shit.
Yeah, like stereotypical heterosexual man stuff. Like I get what you're saying as far as like that character model goes.
Yeah, I'm very big on like the resources that inspire you. So if I could be like that role model for you, or if I could, and I say this to anybody who's ever been on my podcast or anyone who's ever listened to my podcast, Evolving with Cory Kastle, available YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. But I say to anybody who's ever listening to me, I'm like, I'd love to be a resource for you in any way. So if there's ever anything I could do, if there's any ever like conversation I can have with you, judgment-free talk, you need a friend, you need something, I'm happy to be the resource that might connect you to a different frequency of yourself. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that for, I always say like how I'm not a hard person to get a hold of. I put all my information out there. So please, like anybody who's ever spent any amount, I talk constantly about how much effort is more of a precious currency. Time and effort are such a more precious currency than the number zeros on the back of your bank account, because they don't print your credit score or your account balances on your gravestone. It's only the years, and it's like this little line between the years is really like all this room. There's all this room inside of that for anything you want. And love, man. And love. Tons of love.
Yeah. I'm going to now, just to make you mad, I'm going to print my credit score right on my gravestone.
Yeah.
Put it right there. And then like, next to it, just in dash F Cory Kastle. that's all it's going to say.
Well, the thing is, your credit... if you put your credit score on your headstone, you have to have it be able, like, because once you're dead, doesn't your credit score like plummet back down, or it just goes away? I mean, that's.
I hope that I can give it to some promising Nigerian hacker that has really started to find his way.
Somebody who's prostituting you enjoy.
Exactly. That's what I'm doing. To give it to my favorite prostitute from way back when I was a rich businessman cruising the streets. Yeah, God, I hate that movie.
A very wealthy and very busy businessman.
Yeah, Richard Gere. Yeah, God. Anyways, before you're gonna get me spinning off on that movie and just spend the rest of this going on my soapbox about how it teaches women terrible things and it's a piece of trash.
I've never seen it. I don't.
You're lucky.
I don't think I've ever like thought to see it. Like it's not that I went, oh, I don't want to see that. It was just I never saw it and I never thought to watch it.
It has no redeemable value unless you're charmed by 1980s Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. That is it. The storyline itself is just riddled with both what it would be like to be a prostitute, inaccuracies of what it'd be like to be a prostitute, and also just how there is no one coming to save you. Richard Gere is not popping up in anyone's life to save you. You got to do it yourself. And I hate the message of that movie. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Well, this song. Like when I hear of the movie, I just think of the song, and the song automatically makes me think of Dumb and Dumber, which makes me happy. I like Dumb and Dumber. So
that's a fun train to go on. I like that. That's awesome. So all right. So you started in like different schools and everything around your neighborhood in Pennsylvania to get started in wrestling. How did you make that that jump to pro wrestling? Like, what did that look like for you? What was the grind like to get to pro wrestling, or was it really quite simple for you actually?
Well, I think that was all I ever. Let me correct myself.
Mhm.
Uh, it was one of the main things I wanted to do with my life was be a wrestler. So I didn't see it. I didn't see an alternative to being that. So if I wasn't that, I didn't know what I'd be. Like that was my religion. That was my identity. That was all of it was I'm going to be this now. Like it's absolutely going to be what I am. And at this point, I've been a wrestler longer in my life than I've not been a wrestler. So it just felt like this is where I belong. And even though I sucked for so long, and I will not sit here and pretend like I had a glorious 20-year wrestling career, because I didn't. I never made a name for myself. I never got a living from wrestling, but I was an indie guy who made memorable nights for 30 to 100 people for 3 nights a week, sometimes at the busiest, and sometimes once every 2 weeks.
So what was your signature move? Because I want to first let me ask a question before we get into that. Can I find videos of you online, you think?
Yeah, on my YouTube channel.
Oh, so you got videos of your wrestling?
There's some on there.
Okay.
I have my YouTube channel. I use it's youtube.com/Cory Kastle, CoryKastle, one word. And I have videos on there, like old videos that are mine that I put on there a long time ago. And but mostly I just put my full episodes of my podcast on there, like the full video episodes of my podcast on there. The playlists in the channel there, I've like found other matches of mine all over YouTube, and I added them to a playlist that just says Cory Kastle on it. But mostly you could subscribe to my channel to follow the newer episodes of my podcast coming out.
So what was your signature move when you were wrestling? And Mike, describe it. Tell me the name and then describe it to me if you had one. I don't know.
So the move, I called it the incident. where I'll you remember, the Rock Bottom? Did you ever watch The Rock wrestle?
Yeah.
The Rock Bottom where he'd like throw an arm over his head and he'd just fall down?
Yep.
Instead of like carrying you down like The Rock, I pick you up and I put you on I do a backbreaker over my knee on the way down.
Nice. Just to add a little bit of extra pain. I like it.
Yeah. So that's called The Incident. Yeah. And that's also on YouTube and TikTok and wherever you find videos.
What would you say, and I would get away from the wrestling questions here soon, but what would you say is one of the biggest things about wrestling that people don't really understand from the outside looking in, like behind the scenes, that you would say you see a lot of?
I think a lot of it is people look at wrestling like it's and this jumps me up onto a soapbox. I think a lot of people can cast wrestling into a very easy blow off, an easy thing to blow off, to go, oh, you grow out of that. Or they go, that's fake, right? Like taking away the fact that like people are sacrificing their entire life to do this. Mm-hmm. Like I've missed weddings and funerals and parties, everything, for most of my life, for something that you can dismiss as fake. And by saying it's fake, then it's not worth anybody's time, in your opinion. Like, what are you doing with your life? And that offends me as a wrestler, and as like all of us as wrestlers are offended by the ability to shame wrestling and shame wrestling fans for being idiots who don't know that it's a work. Of course, it's a work. If you're a fan of it, that it's an art craft. Like, just like, like Bruce Willis never met Hans Gruber, right? Hans Gruber was a character that was played.
How dare you? How freaking dare you? Come
And
on here
Bruce Willis
with
was
this
not
blasphemy.
Right.
Nonsense.
It wasn't Bruce Willis. It was John McClane.
Yeah.
They never actually met each other. Those weren't real people. Oh, movies are fake, right? Like,
well, and I think, like, just to piggyback off your point there, I was having a conversation earlier today on Facebook with people about what I've been calling cultural hierarchies, which is sponsored by this conversation between two people on Twitter that was saying that somebody who listens to trap music wouldn't understand Beethoven, because we put these different musics and different things all across our culture into hierarchies. And classical music is highbrow. It's very like fancy and everything like that. And trap music is lower. And then, like you said before, acting, Die Hard, totally acceptable, understand it, everything like that. Wrestling, you grow out of, that's for teenage boys. It's fake, like all that type of stuff. And then, but if you look at them by their elements, wrestling is stage acting. It's really more comparable to theater. It's comparable to Broadway and anything like that. So it's an enhanced form of that combat you would see in like a Broadway musical or any kind of stage acting and stuff like that.
Parading as if it's a sporting event.
Well, but like you said, maybe when it first started, people weren't in on the work and they were like wanting to live vicariously through that and think that, the Ultimate Warrior like really hated all these people and like all that stuff. You wanted to believe that. You wanted to believe going into all that stuff. But then, as you said, it changes when you age, not from a place of growing out of it, but in a place of appreciating it for more honestly what it is compared to what you thought it was when you maybe were younger or something like that, which is a beautiful thing to do. Because now that you realize that these people are in on this work and stuff like that, you can be more impressed by their commitment to the craft for one. Because so what's that the wrestling thing called kayfabe, or I don't know how to say it. I've never said it out loud.
You just said it out loud.
That's kayfabe. Oh, so that's how you pronounce it? Okay. So, and for those who aren't aware, kayfabe, you correct me where I get it wrong, because like I said, I'm not like somebody who has an extensive wrestling history knowledge, but kayfabe is basically the principle that you never break character. You're never allowed to break character. And like, so dudes will tear their shoulder, they'll break legs. Like, I think somebody had a heart attack or something like that. And like, you just cannot break character no matter what you're doing. You have to stay like in character and try to like finish the match and like things like that. Or if they see you in public, depending again on what organization you're with, if they see you in public, you still have to be that character. You can't just be now Brad, now that you're off screen, or it's gonna be out of the ring. You have to be still your character.
Well, I think the part of kayfabe really, and a lot of people, and I don't know if any of your listeners are wrestling fans at all, but I think the business, the work of the industry of pro wrestling was so protected, and this code of kayfabe existed for that reason. Mm-hmm. So if somebody at a bar challenged me and said they could beat me up because I'm just a fake wrestler, I'd have to F their life up in order to keep the kayfabe work going. Mm-hmm. So if I'm at a bar and the guy who plays my enemy on TV is at that bar, I got to go hit him. Like, dude, I can't talk to him because I need these people to like, if a news story comes out, it's gonna be like, well, Cory Kastle beat up Smack Matthews over at the tavern.
I was with you until you got to tavern. Until you get to tavern, the whole thing sounded. And again, that's a real word. It's a real place and everything. But just now it sounds completely like something that would be in one of the wrestling broadcasts. Think like I had no fight at the tavern or the lodge.
Yeah, and Smack Matthews was a name I just made up.
So was it? I just thought it might have been one of your nemesis when you were still
anybody who is thinking about using a wrestling name. You can't go wrong with Smack as a first name. That'll be fun.
I like it. I like Smack Matthews. That sounds like a real name. Either that or like a news reporter on some like low budget network. I'm Smack Matthews here with the news at 5.
Yeah. Reporting live, Smack Matthews.
I like it. I'm going to create a character off that name now. I really like it. That's awesome. So I think that's something, like you said, you're making a lot of good points there. And it's that cultural hierarchy again, where we try to put value on things that don't necessarily have an inherent value to them. And so, like you said, Bruce Willis isn't going to see, well, he's dead now, rest in peace, Alan Rickman. But if Bruce Willis saw Alan Rickman somewhere at an award show or something like that, he's not going to punch them because they played nemesis in a movie or something like that. So there's that level of commitment to what you're doing, that you believe in it that much that you're letting it really like run your life. And then especially with some of the contracts like the WWE wrestlers would sign, and what that meant to what they had to do and everything, and what they can't do after they finish wrestling, and like that whole thing. It's impressive to me that people put their bodies through that and then their lives through that. And that's where you get a more impassioned workforce, I think, because even if like say somebody like The Rock, right? He had his days of grinding through and being in some dungeon arena or whatever, somewhere, hurt it with his back, killing him, his knee, feel like it's going to blow out and all this type of stuff. And nobody knows who he is. You know what I mean? So you can't just discount the work that he had to do to become who he is today. And now, again, he's more of a legacy wrestler, so he probably came up with a little bit extra, like nepotism we keep running into. But it's not like his dad was Hulk Hogan and he could just handpick him and drag him along or anything like that.
His dad was a big deal.
Yeah, Rocky. I forget his full name now.
Rocky Johnson.
But,
Rocky Johnson was a huge deal. He was one of the first ever African American tag teams to ever win the championship.
Yeah, that dude was huge. Like literally, I mean, I don't mean like as far as fame. I mean, physically, he was a big dude too. He was crazy.
Right.
So, but my point is that yes, he still had to grind it out, and his dad being who his dad was probably helped him out a little bit, but not to the level of where he didn't have to put the work in for himself.
And people like The Rock. People like The Rock. It's easy to go, oh, it was nepotism, and discount that he didn't earn what he's got. Have to remember that some people are just really natural at what they're doing. Some people are just naturally good. Like, it can get discouraging to not be naturally as good as somebody who's just really naturally good at what they're doing, but they're like a standout. Like Rocky, The Rock. I almost said Rocky Maivia. Rocky Maivia. He was a dynamo, dude. Like, honestly, he was. Nobody makes a rise in the business like he did. Nobody, that superstars don't come along like that. It was once in a lifetime. And I always say it's like The Rock's a huge star now, but like The Rock belonged to us first as wrestling fans. Like as a fan, I feel like I have a little like, you guys get to have him now, but like we had him first.
Well, it's like a band that maybe you watch like locally or something like that, and then they blow up and you're like, yeah, you guys know them now. We've always known them and we know who they really are and like that type of stuff. But even more so, what I think you see there too is somebody like The Rock is the reason he's a big star is for the same reason he was a big star in WWE. So they're not separate worlds. It's not like they exist in this weird basement where all these nerds are watching and everything like that. No, if you recognize somebody who is a star in that realm, they can cross over the same way. And now you've seen Cena do it. You've seen Batista to do it, all these other women and men have started to do that as well, because what you're doing again is an enhanced form of stage combat acting and everything like that with still acting in it, so you can definitely be an actor after that, because that's the same skill. It's the same wheelhouse of skills.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's I told you earlier, like a lot of what I wanted to do when I was younger was I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And I said, the first thing I ever said I wanted to be was a stand-up comedian. I said, I want to be a stand-up comedian and I want to be a wrestler. I didn't know I wanted to be both things at once. I didn't know that was possible. But that's great. I never said I wanted to be a podcaster because podcasting didn't exist. So if you feel aimless, if you feel like you don't have a drive for something, be patient with yourself. Maybe what you want in life doesn't exist yet. Or maybe you have to take steps towards creating what it is that you want in your life.
Absolutely. And one of the things I always try to preach to people is no matter where you're at in your life, your first step to anything you want to do should be self-analysis. You should figure out who you are and what really drives you and what really you want to do. I think that's a lot of the work that we turn ourselves away from, and we don't want to really look at ourselves. We always make excuses for our behaviors. We make excuses for our emotions. We tell ourselves that our emotions are going to drive us wherever we want, wherever they're going to take us. But we have to really figure out who we are as people, because if you don't know who you are, you can't really know what you want. And that's one of the things I feel like I see a lot of people do. They go off on this path either because of money, because their father did it, because of whatever else. And then they end up really just unhappy. because
Yeah,
they.
it's a learned behavior. It's a
Mhm.
pattern that you've got to break. This very self-limiting mindset is something you can unlearn. Uh, like it's really a matter of convincing your subconscious mind that you deserve everything you want and you deserve to be where you are. Like I have the moments too, like where I go, like I got trained in what's a work. You know what I mean? Wrestling's a work. So I got trained how to portray the work. And part of my training that was beat into my head when I was coming up. I don't know about any other generations. I don't know what they go through now, but what was beat into my head was you're here because you in your brain believe that you should be doing this. So you should believe that you deserve to be here doing this right now. And walk around in this ring, carry yourself like you know what you're doing and you belong here. So my face did a lot of the storytelling, a lot my body language like improved because it's like the sureness of like I belong in a very elite people, and I hate that word is so overused now,
Mhm.
but we are a very rare breed of people who go like, dude. There's MMA gyms in every shopping center. There's a wrestling team in every school. There's a basketball, baseball, football team everywhere. Where where's your nearest pro wrestling school? Do you know, Brand?
Mine, no. I'm in Florida, so they can't be far.
No, but I'm saying like it's
Well,
not
there's.
something everybody knows about. Like you had to be very special to be a part of this business.
Mm.
Like that's a part of it, and part of the kayfabe, part of the code was we we used to we used to weed out who wouldn't be able to make it. Like there used to be a process of going like you're just not maybe something else works better. And you know what? Maybe that should have happened to me. Maybe somebody should have said maybe this isn't for you. But nobody did that because I showed up. 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 And being there like when I talk to my trainers now like as men, we're friends. Like they're
Mm.
very close friends of mine now. It's great that these men taught me how to be a man. Like I didn't have a male role model at home. My dad wasn't around. So these men were my role models. These men formed me into being able to improve my my posture and my honor and my respect. And they taught me a lot of it's just like learning a martial art because
Mhm.
of the mindset and the balance that you have in yourself that came through watching people. It wasn't necessarily something they had to say, look, this is what, hey, look, this is what you do, this is what you don't do. That's something they did too, but not with everything. With everything, I would just observe. And I would say, well, I like that. Well, there's the thing I don't like. So let me make sure I'm not that. There's so very I found that in my wrestling, I then applied that to me as a person and how to be as what we call over in real life. So like having it so that I'm somebody that I'd want to go to if I were my friend to understand something better.
And I'm glad you made a connection there because I was thinking about it myself throughout this conversation. Because my background, I do have a martial arts background, MMA primarily, like jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and all, wrestling. Coincidentally, all that stuff and everything.
My
So
brother's in jiu-jitsu.
yeah. So I was going to ask you, and like, have you considered going over to like martial, not necessarily for a career or anything like that, just
Right.
for hobbies and
Oh,
things
yeah,
like that?
all the time. I think about it all the time. I think
Do it.
about but
Got to do it. Absolutely
I
do
think
it.
I think that a good amount of the egos might be unhealthy egos, and I'm just a little cautious of getting around some toxic stuff, and I just have steered clear of that
every
for that
every
reason.
place can have that. I'm not saying they do. I'm saying they can. You never know what you're going to
Right.
walk into because I've been to some
Mhm.
bad MMA gyms and stuff like that. But if you go to a place where jiu-jitsu is the primary martial art to do, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, a lot of times it gets rid of that ego because you're going to get on the mat and get smashed by like a 130-pound female or something like that or whatever. And so
Mhm.
that's going to strip you down. Like you can't go on there and think you're king badass or whatever when you got some 16-year-old kid heel hooking you and you feel like your knee's going to explode. You know what I mean? Like there's all these things. And that's one of the things you see with a lot of people who go into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Those who go in with ego get washed out. They don't make it because it kills your ego time after time after time. And if you don't break yourself down and get rid of that ego, then a lot of times you'll have to walk out of the gym and not come back because it's hard to do that.
I wasn't really referring to as like physical ego as much as like mental ego. People are like, oh, I know I'm right. I've got the decisions that I've made when I was 12 that I've never wavered from, that I won't waver from. And you can't tell me I'm wrong. Like it's like the same thing. Like I say it all the time. When I first started getting into pro wrestling, some of my friends who I was friends with and wrestling friends with, we'd watch wrestling together, but they would say, oh, it's so I couldn't get into the ring and do what you do because I couldn't let somebody beat me. And I'm like, I couldn't let somebody win. And I'm like, you know that they're not actually winning. They're not actually better than me. It just appears that way to whoever's watching, but we're furthering a story here. This is all we are either concluding a story or we're leading to something bigger. Like it's a show. Like, so like my ego kind of been gone for a while when it came to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I did have a kind of shitty ego there for a while. I'd have to say, because of being able, like, dude, I was 19 years old and I had really good abs and I was on TV and that's not something I was healthy enough for. That wasn't something I was not fit for service in that.
Yeah, oh man, I told somebody this. I don't remember what episode it was or who I was talking to, but yeah, I would have been Charlie Sheen if you gave me money and fame when I was young. Right. There's no way. Right. Like I know who I was back then. Now I can handle it. I can absolutely handle it now because
hand me a TV contract now. Sure, I will take it.
Absolutely, but that's what I'm saying. Like I think that's one of the beauties of life sometimes, that you don't get those things in the wrong moments, and sometimes when you do, you're able to make it out of there at the same time. Because like you said, you got a little bit when your ego was still pretty big or whatever, and you made it out though. You're not that person anymore, so you actually got to evolve through that, and so you're better for having experienced that. You know what I mean? Exactly. So oh man. So all right. So tell me, like we talked about before you got on here, I wanted to know, did the wrestling, you feel like the wrestling led you to the acting you've done, or how are those connected, or are they not connected at all?
They're parallel, right? Like I don't know. I think I treat everything like it's connected to everything. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say that they're not connected, because I like to say that, like, my wrestling, Cory Kastle as a pro wrestler, people watch my matches and they go, oh, well, that guy's cool. That guy's good. His gimmick's cool. His whatever is cool. You know, he has a podcast. Oh, he has a podcast? Let me check out his podcast. Oh, on the podcast, he talks about how he does stand-up comedy. Oh, I'm going to go see his stand-up comedy. Oh, in his comedy, he talked about his wrestling career. And then goes back in that same, everything serving itself. Mm-hmm. Or if somebody saw me in a film, somebody saw me acting and they go, oh, that guy's a wrestler. Then they'll like look up the wrestling and then stumble upon anything else. That's why I use the same name for everything. I'm Cory Kastle, and that's what I'm using for everything. So if you Google me for one thing, you'll find all the other things I do, and they all serve one another. Every lesson I've learned through wrestling has made my comedy better, has made my acting better, has made my podcasting better. Like all of it, lends to everything else.
So what was your first acting role then? When did you start at?
Hey man, I auditioned to be in the movie Holes with Shia LaBeouf when I was 18 years old.
Oh wow! So you've been at that for a while then.
Yeah. So, right before quarantine started, I was actually, my main source of income was acting. So I was doing that for my main source of income. But you know, when things shut down, movie sets shut down, sets shut down. So I just was like, all right, well, I'll sit around for a couple months, and then I started doing HVAC with my friend, and you know, working for his dad.
It's awesome. So
Just
I guess what is it about acting for you that you feel like you're attracted to? What do you like about playing characters and things like that?
honestly, man, I'm a storyteller. I've been a storyteller my whole life, and that's, you know, evident through pro wrestling and the fact that like I have I have this look at me part of me that is like, all right, I got it. I've decided that a story is something that is just as memorable, you know, just as memorable as a joke
Mhm.
like that I would do on stage. If I tell a story where I play a part, if I'm somebody else, you can escape from, you know, it can help somebody watching escape from whatever uncomfortabilities they're dealing with just for, you know, however long the story is that I'm telling.
Nice. See, for me, and I've done very limited acting in my adult life. Went to like an art school when I was younger and stuff, so I did it more there. But I always felt like acting was pushing myself emotionally to a place that maybe I wouldn't have gone as myself. You know what I mean? So it was kind of getting to experience a small portion, a small section of someone else's life. And that has always fascinated me from because like I tell my girlfriend and I tell people all the time, like I'll get lost in thinking about other people's lives. Sometimes when I'm driving, just driving by somebody's car, not an even particularly nice car. They're not a particularly attractive person or anything like that. It's nothing that stands out about them. But then I just go, where are they going? What's their life like? Who do they have? Wives? Do they have kids? What do they do for work? Like just and try to break down all their stuff. And so when you're acting for again 30 seconds at a time, a minute at a time, whatever it is, you get to be someone else, and it's really different. It's a really different feeling. I don't think unless you've experienced it, it's really hard to describe. But you actually get to be somebody else because you're feeling someone else's emotions. Because me, Brandon, when I was in like Death of a Salesman or whatever, I'm not angry. Why would I be angry? I'm on stage with friends doing a play or whatever, but the
Right.
character's angry, and so I have to find that anger and bring that anger out, and then you get to like just look at it through their lens, and that was just again, it's pretty fun.
Mhm.
And then, like you
It's,
said, the look at me part is always fun.
it's escapism too. Yeah. It's that it's inside of like, I, I'll make this comparison. I've was recently thinking these thoughts, but I didn't say them out loud. Uh, when I was younger, I wrestled a match with a mask on for the first time and realized when I had that mask on, I could like dance and stuff and be goofy, like something I would never do without the mask on because I was that character. I was the character who had the mask on. I wasn't me. I wasn't, you know, the awkward, weird, I don't like my body moving. I don't want anyone looking at me while my body's moving this way. I wasn't that. I was whatever this masked character was, you know? So I looked at that and I go, well, like apply that to playing a part in an acting sense, or like I was just I had a conversation the other day with my friend who's a comedian. He used to do commentary on wrestling shows,
Mhm.
and he's like, I didn't realize how much I loved this. I didn't realize how much getting into a character to do commentary was going to be something that like I enjoyed this much. So it's like a good blend of being a sports analyzer and a comedy goofball and a wrestling goofball.
And I think that's one of the things a lot of people don't realize who don't do that kind of creative don't have that creative outlet or something like that is you get to express different parts of yourself that maybe you mute or don't naturally explore through your
Right.
everyday life. You know what I mean? Like doing this on here, like talking about wrestling or talking crap and just like making riffing off jokes back to back or back. I'm not doing that at work. I'm not doing that with the people that I see in my everyday life all the time, you know? So you get to express these different portions of yourself and kind of make you think about who you truly are, but also just get out that energy that maybe you were holding back because, like you said, you don't want to dance, but now you got the mask on and you're just different character. Now you get to dance a little bit. Maybe that part of you is like, hey, I actually like dancing a little bit, just a little bit, not enough to dedicate myself to it or like be really good at it, but just enough that this was fun.
Right.
This was a fun
Right.
thing to do, and I got to express that
Right.
portion of myself where other people
I was
never
a
do.
silly Billy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's one of the, like I said, beauties of all those different types of creativity you can do, whether it's music, whether it's wrestling, acting, anything that you get to do that's kind of creative, even podcasting. Like I said, I'm having a conversation with you. If you watch another of my episodes, I'm not having the same conversation. I'm not talking the same way. My cadence is different. Like all these things change, right? And I think that's just a really fun part about it, is going through all those different experiences of yourself. It's like not directly that out of body experience where you're looking down at yourself and like, holy crap, what's happening? But you're getting to a different part of your brain, a different part of the overall human experience through these different things you're doing. And I think that for me, that's again the beauty in the work, not the outcome.
Right. Right, man. Now, I think, dude, I was watching the Wu-Tang documentary series on
Oh yeah,
Showtime.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Method Man. Method Man he worked at some restaurant that was in like the Statue of Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And he went back there and he's like, this is the best time. Like when I think about my life, this is like my favorite thing. This is my favorite time of my life. I love this job. And like the guy who was his boss was still there. And he's like, I thank you. Thank you so much. Like you don't realize what the best part of your life is while you're struggling through it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you got the foresight or the hindsight to look back and go, wow, I was really on my way there. I was really on my way to becoming, I'm in the middle of learning these really great lessons that are forming me into the type of person I'd like to be. And,
Absolutely.
it's hard when you're right in the middle of it, because remember that commercial that was like stuck in a dead end job and there was a guy in a box and he was like trying to reach out of the, like, I think that's how people get in their feelings. People get too stuck inside of their feelings to zoom out enough to go, man, look at all the things that I can be grateful for. Look at all the stuff that I got. Look at all the lessons that I'm learning constantly about the world and about like the perspective I have, like the time that I'm living in. To be unhappy in the best time there is to be alive,
Mm-hmm.
it can be hard. It can be hard to stay unhappy, but I mean, it can be hard to stay happy too.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just about finding that balance is what I was going to say.
And I think, at the risk of sounding like every Instagram yoga teacher out there, I think that comes from part of being present in what you're actively doing. You know what I mean? Instead of seeing everything as something that is either tied to your past or tied to your future, seeing it as something that is currently just happening. Don't worry about what this means for anything else. Don't worry about where this takes you, what it came from, or anything. Just experience it for what it is. And then you get closer to actually realizing, oh, that was maybe the best time of my life or anything like that. Because I think one of the reasons we always look back on it is because we're comparing it to other moments we've had, and we've seen either what that became of that, or we know what we've experienced since and all that type of stuff. And so you don't necessarily get to appreciate it when you're in that moment, because you haven't developed that skill for actually appreciating moments. You're constantly looking at the future, especially because a lot of the good stuff, like Method Man, for his example, it happened to him when he was young. So nobody, when they're, well, let me say it this way. A lot of people when they're young have one of two experiences. They believe something they're going to do or that they don't get to do is the most important thing ever. Like, so if they miss it, they feel like they're going to die. Or none of this actually matters. And so you don't really, until you get older and you realize how important that actual moment was, does it really take its precedence, take the precedence it has in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Did you watch that documentary?
I have not yet. I didn't know that it was out. I knew that it was coming. I saw like that it was coming. I never keep up when things actually release. I always see them like, oh, I want to see that. And then, oh, it's been out for 3 months.
I highly suggest it. It's called Of Mics and Men. It's like a four-part documentary. And it's really, really good. I mean, yeah, very good.
It's Wu-Tang. I mean, that's all you have to say. It's Wu-Tang and it's going to be good. Like, I don't know what Wu-Tang has been involved in that's bad. You know what I mean? Whether it's music or art or anything like that. All those dudes are so talented in so many different ways, particularly, obviously, RZA, who's now scoring movies and, like, I think directed. Yeah, he directed The Man with the Iron Fist and everything like that, too. So, like, all those things. Weirdly, which had Batista in it, just tying a nice little bow on everything we're talking about here.
Cyclical, man. We're coming right back around. But, yeah, this documentary shines light on, like, RZA being the mastermind of the whole thing. And like really putting it together and showing when he was signed to Tommy Boy Records when he was younger, he was like Prince Rakim or something like that. Mm. It's good, man. You got to watch it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out. But all right, man, thank you for so much for coming on here and just talking about all these different things and going on some weird places for me. Thank you for giving me the platform to finally announce on my podcast how much I hate Pretty Woman, and I will fight anyone over my hatred for that movie. So I really appreciate you getting that out of me. I did not have that chance before. Go ahead.
Can I also give you the platform? Can I give myself the platform to tell you this real quick?
Go for it.
Let it go.
No,
You
absolutely
don't
not.
need to get in fights over Pretty Woman.
My life is defined by the things I hate.
Just it's not serving you. It really is not. It's too much weight to carry. That's not going to it's not going to help you in any way to carry weight for that. I get that it's teaching bad lessons, but sometimes people have to see that lesson, try to follow it, fail to learn humility. So it is the part where, oh, it's a bad example, but it becomes real, like real lesson learning. Like it can mold somebody when they realize that, like, that's fantasy, and it gives somebody perspective on like what's real and what's not.
It's the best way to get up my toxic energy is hating pop culture pieces that have no real effect on my life. That's where I get to take that negative energy out. If it's not that, then I'm gonna start beating the kids I don't have. So, you gotta find somewhere for it.
Do you know the band Papa Roach?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
They just they released in quarantine in 2020. They released a redo of their album from 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a song called Tightrope on there, Tightrope 2020. But look that song up, and in it he says there's a thin line between what is good and what is evil, and I will tiptoe down that line. I will feel unstable. I dig it, dude. It's you can't get through a podcast with me without me quoting some music. Some
you've
weird
done,
lyrics.
what is it? That's at least two. You did what was it? City High, I think earlier. Yeah, City High.
And
now
we
Papa
didn't get
Roach.
back to me telling you how that goes.
That's some range.
What's that?
I said that's some range. You went from like a 90s R&B group to Papa Roach, so you've got some range there on it.
And Wu-Tang too. We talked.
Well, yeah, but that was more the documentary though. That's on the outskirts of it.
But really, the song is called "What Would You Do," and it is the story behind the song is he went to a party where they hired hookers at the party, and one of the hookers was a girl he like knew in school, and he was like, "Oh my God, what happened to your life? How did it resort to this?" And then the girl's like, "What would you do if your son was at home crying all alone?"
Oh,
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
bedroom floor
I know that song. Yeah, I absolutely know that song.
The only way to feed him is to sleep with a man for a little bit of money, and his daddy's gone. So we're all alone now.
I absolutely know that
song. Get out of lockdown. I ain't got no job now.
Yeah.
So for you, this is just a good time, but for me, this is what I call life.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I absolutely know that song. I can't believe I brain dumped that. So anyways, man, I'm gonna let you go though. But like I said, thanks again for coming on here and talking about all those different things. Do me a favor, tell everybody where they can find you if they want to hear more from you.
Go to youtube.com/Cory Kastle to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Go on to Apple Podcast, put in Evolving with Cory Kastle. Honestly, dude, if you just search Cory Kastle, CoryKastle, anywhere, you'll find me. I started trying to I was trying to look something up on YouTube the other day, and I put my name in, and it suggested Cory Kastle's phone number. I didn't know that was such in demand, but yes, that pops up. Cory Kastle's phone number. You can check me out. Do a search for that. You'll probably find it. And if you're going through anything, you want to talk to anybody, first, like, subscribe and listen to some episodes and see if you can catch what my vibe is. And, feel free to reach out to me. I say all the time on my other podcast is called Wrestle Rock. And it's like a comedy pro wrestling talk show. And on that show, I always say towards the end, if you like what we're doing, let us know that you exist. Like, we're mostly not doing it for income. Obviously, like, it's not something that's got me living high on the hog. I'm a pretty regular, normal dude, and I really, really always appreciate the feedback. And if you want to see like the most genuine happy, pay me a compliment and watch the way I react. Watch my face. My hands cover my heart, and I have the biggest smile on my face. I live for compliments. So comment on any of the videos. You know, even if they're going to be negative. I mean, as long as one of them's nice.
You get two negative, one nice. That's how you got to balance it out. It's all about balance, right?
So. Yeah. So at Cory Kastle on Twitter, I tweet a lot of jokes. At Cory Kastle on Instagram, I post a lot of pics. And check out Bruce on YouTube. Check out, if you just search Cory Kastle and Bruce, you'll find this 15-minute short film that I did where we did an alternative universe storytelling of Bruce Wayne, Batman. And I played Bruce. But we never really, it's not a typical fan film for Batman. If you're a fan of Batman and you know the story pretty well, check out this film. I think you'll really dig it. And that's all I got to say. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. If this is your first time checking out Brandon's podcast, make sure you subscribe. Show him some love and share the heck out of his crap.
Yeah, unless you like Pretty Woman, then get the hell off my page. So, all right, man. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon. Take care, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for checking out Starting Nowhere. Come find us on Facebook so you can comment on this and other clips and episodes of Starting Nowhere.